If I told you that something as simple as the cheese you choose could quietly change how your bones feel when you wake up in the morning, would you want to know more? I'm asking because over the years, I sat across from hundreds of people in their 70s and 80s who've told me the same thing. They say, "Doctor, I'm doing everything right. I'm eating my eggs. I'm taking my vitamins. But I still feel fragile." And what I've learned is this. Sometimes the things we've been told are good for us aren't quite the whole story, especially when it comes to our bones, our joints, and how our body actually uses what we give it. Today, I want to share something with you that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not complicated. It's not expensive, but it's one of those truths that can make a real difference in how you feel day to day, especially after 70. I've been working with older adults for more than 2 decades. Not just in the operating room, but in quiet moments, like this one. Listening, watching patterns, seeing what actually helps people feel steadier, stronger, and more like themselves. And I've noticed something about how we think about protein, calcium, and bone health that doesn't quite match up with what I see in real life. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to walk you through 5 insights that many people don't realize until much later, things that can sometimes change how you think about food, about your body, and about what you actually need after 70. The fifth one is the most personal. It's not just about your bones. It's about how you see yourself, and I think it might be the most important one of all. Let's start with the first insight. For years, we've been told that eggs are the perfect protein, and in many ways, they are. They're affordable, easy to prepare, and they do contain nutrients our bodies need. But here's what I've observed in my practice. Many people in their 70s eat eggs every morning, thinking they're taking care of their bones. And then they come to me months later, surprised that they still feel unsteady, still worried about falling, still noticing that their bones feel more delicate than they'd like. And when I ask them what else they're eating, I often hear the same thing. "Well, I have my eggs. Isn't that enough?" The truth is, eggs don't contain much calcium, and after 70, calcium becomes even more important. Not just any calcium, but calcium that your body can actually absorb and use. Here's what happens quietly over time. As we age, our stomach produces less acid. That means even when we eat calcium-rich foods, we may not absorb as much as we think. And without the right kind of calcium, paired with the right nutrients, our bones can slowly become more porous, even when we're trying our best. Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 73 when I first met her. She came in because she'd fallen twice in 6 months. Nothing broken, thankfully, but she was scared. She told me she ate 2 eggs every single morning, just like her doctor had suggested years ago. When we talked about her overall diet, I realized she wasn't eating much dairy at all. She'd heard mixed messages about fat, about cholesterol, and she'd quietly stopped eating cheese years before. I didn't tell her to stop eating eggs, but I did ask her to try something. Add a small amount of aged cheese to her meals a few times a week. Not a lot, just enough. 3 months later, Margaret came back. She told me she felt different, not miraculous, but steadier. She said she felt more confident walking to her mailbox, and that small shift in confidence changed how she moved through her day. What I want you to understand is this. Eggs are good, but they're not the complete answer, and sometimes what we've been doing for years without questioning it is worth looking at again. Now, I'm not saying you should stop eating eggs, not at all. Eggs are nutritious and they have their place. What I'm suggesting is that they might work better when they're part of a broader approach to nutrition, when we complement them with other foods that fill in what eggs don't provide on their own. Now, when I talk about cheese, I need to be clear about something. Not all cheese works the same way in your body after 70. The cheese that's been aged, that's been sitting and developing for months or even years, is very different from the soft processed cheese you might spread on a cracker. Aged cheese like Parmesan, Gruyere, or aged cheddar contains something called vitamin K2. And this is where things get interesting. Vitamin K2 is one of those nutrients that doesn't get talked about much, but research suggests it may play a role in how our body uses calcium. Some studies indicate it could help guide calcium toward our bones rather than ending up in other tissues. Now, I want to be clear, this doesn't work the same way for everyone, but in my experience, I've seen people who include aged cheese in their diet often report feeling more confident about their bone health over time. And here's the part that surprises many people. Eggs contain very little vitamin K2, but aged cheese? It's one of the foods that naturally contains more of it. I remember sitting with Robert, who was 78. He was a retired engineer, very detail-oriented, very careful about his health. He'd been taking calcium supplements for 10 years. He ate eggs. He drank milk. But he still felt like his bones weren't strong. When I asked him about cheese, he said he avoided it. Too much fat, he thought. Too many calories. I explained what I'm explaining to you now. That aged cheese in small amounts might actually help his body use all that calcium he'd been so carefully consuming. He was skeptical at first, but he trusted me enough to try. He started adding a tablespoon of grated Parmesan to his meals, just a little bit each day. 4 months later, Robert told me something I'll never forget. He said, "I don't know if it's the cheese or something else, but I feel less afraid." That's how he put it. Less afraid of breaking, less afraid of falling, less afraid of his own body. And to me, that emotional shift matters just as much as anything I can measure in a lab. This isn't about replacing eggs. It's about complementing them. About giving your body a wider range of nutrients that work together in ways that might support how you feel day to day. If what I'm sharing with you today is making you think about your own choices, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave a comment with the number 3 if this resonates. It helps me know I'm speaking to the right people. Here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. The way your body processes protein changes as you age. And this matters more than most people realize. When you're younger, your body is very efficient at breaking down protein and using it to maintain muscle, repair tissue, and keep you strong. But after 70, that process slows down. Your body needs more protein than it used to, but it's also less efficient at using it. Eggs do contain protein, about 6 grams per egg. But here's what I've observed. Many older adults eat eggs and then don't eat much protein for the rest of the day. And that's where the problem starts. Your body can't store protein the way it stores fat or carbohydrates. It needs a steady supply throughout the day. And if you're only eating protein at breakfast, your muscles and bones aren't getting what they need when they need it. Aged cheese is different. It's incredibly protein-dense. Just 1 ounce of Parmesan contains about 10 grams of protein. And because it's a fermented food, your body can break it down more easily than some other proteins. I think about Dorothy, who was 81 when I met her. She lived alone and she'd gotten into the habit of eating very simply. Toast and eggs in the morning, soup for lunch, a small dinner. She thought she was eating enough. But when we talked more, I realized she was barely getting 40 grams of protein a day. And for someone her age, that's not enough to maintain muscle and bone strength. I didn't overwhelm her with numbers or complicated meal plans. I just asked her to add a little bit of cheese to her lunch, grate some on her soup, add a slice to her sandwich. It wasn't a dramatic change. But over time, Dorothy told me she noticed something. She felt less tired. She had more energy to do the things she wanted to do. And that small change made her feel more independent. What I want you to take from this is simple. Protein matters. And the kind of protein, and when you eat it, matters too. Eggs are a good start. But they're not the only answer, and they might not be enough on their own. Here's something that surprises many people. Taking more calcium doesn't always make you feel better. In fact, sometimes it can make things feel worse. I've seen this pattern many times. Someone starts taking a calcium supplement because they're worried about their bones. They take it faithfully every day, and then they come to me a few months later complaining of joint stiffness, muscle cramps, or digestive discomfort. What's happening is this. Calcium needs to be balanced with other minerals, especially magnesium and vitamin D. When you take calcium alone, without those balancing nutrients, your body can struggle. And here's where aged cheese has another quiet advantage. It contains not just calcium, but also phosphorus and small amounts of magnesium. It's a more balanced source than a pill. Eggs, on the other hand, contain very little calcium. So if you're relying on eggs for bone health, you're missing that entirely. I remember Harold, who was 76. He'd been taking calcium supplements for years. High doses, because his previous doctor had told him to. But he came to me complaining that his knees felt stiff and his muscles ached all the time. When we reviewed his diet and supplements together, I realized he was getting too much calcium and not enough of the nutrients that help calcium work properly in the body. I suggested he stop the high-dose supplements and instead try getting calcium from food, specifically from small amounts of aged cheese. And I asked him to make sure he was getting enough magnesium and vitamin D as well, which his body needed to balance everything out. Within 2 months, Harold told me the stiffness had eased. He said he felt more comfortable in his body. And that's what I care about most. It's not about taking more of everything. It's about balance. It's about giving your body what it actually needs, in forms it can use without overwhelming it. Now, this last insight is different. It's not just about calcium or protein or vitamin K2. It's about something deeper. Over the years, I've noticed that how people feel about themselves, how they see their own aging, has a profound effect on their physical health. And I don't think we talk about this enough. Many people come to me feeling invisible, feeling like their concerns are brushed aside, feeling like their body is failing them and there's nothing they can do about it. And when you feel that way, it changes how you move. It changes how you eat. It changes whether you even bother trying to take care of yourself. I've sat with people who've told me they stopped cooking real meals because it's just me. They stopped eating foods they love because someone once told them it was bad for them. They stopped trusting their own body's signals because they'd been told so many times that aging means decline. But here's what I've seen. When someone starts making small, intentional choices, when they feel like they have some control over their health, something shifts. Not just physically, but emotionally. Let me tell you about Evelyn. She was 82 when I met her. She came in for a consultation about her hip, but what struck me most was how defeated she seemed. She told me she felt like a burden. She said she didn't want to bother anyone with her questions. We talked for a long time that day, not just about her hip, but about her life, about the foods she used to love, about how she used to feel in her body. And at the end of our conversation, I asked her to try something. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for herself. I asked her to add one small thing to her meals each day that made her feel cared for. Something nourishing. Something she enjoyed. She chose cheese. Aged Gruyere specifically. She told me it reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen. When I saw Evelyn 6 months later, she looked different. She stood a little taller. She smiled more easily. And when I asked her how she was feeling, she said something I'll never forget. She said, "I feel like I matter again." That's what this is really about. It's not just about bones. It's not just about calcium or protein. It's about feeling like you matter. Like your choices matter. Like your body is still worth caring for. Because it is. I know this conversation might bring up a lot of feelings. Maybe it's making you think about choices you've made. Maybe it's making you wish someone had told you this sooner. And if you're feeling that way, I want you to know it's okay. You've been doing the best you can with the information you had. We all have. The important thing is what you do from here. The small choices you make today. The way you talk to yourself about your own body and your own aging. So here's what I want to leave you with. Aging doesn't mean you stop mattering. It doesn't mean your health is out of your control. And it doesn't mean you have to settle for feeling fragile or afraid. Small changes made with care and intention can sometimes shift how you feel in ways that surprise you. If you take anything away from this conversation, I hope it's this. You are worth the effort. Your body is still capable of responding to what you give it. And the choices you make, even the small ones, still matter. If you have questions about your own health, about what might work for you, I encourage you to talk with your doctor. Not from a place of fear, but from a place of partnership. You know your body better than anyone else, and a good doctor will listen. If this conversation helped you see something differently, I'd be grateful if you'd stay connected. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more conversations like this one. Share this with someone you care about if you think it might help them. But most of all, take care of yourself. Not because you have to, but because you matter. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next video.